Long ago, in a land surrounded by thick forests and silent rivers, there lived a man the villagers feared more than death itself. His real name was rarely mentioned, not because it was forgotten, but because speaking it felt like inviting darkness into your home. He was a witch man, a man whose heart burned whenever he saw another person succeed. If a farmer harvested more crops than him, that farmer's joy never lasted long. If a fisherman returned home with heavy nets and laughter, tragedy followed soon after. If a family rose above poverty, fate mysteriously turned against them. People whispered, "Once he notices your progress, your days are numbered." Yet, out of fear, the villagers never called him what he truly was. They gave him sweet names. They called him Good Elder. They called him Uncle Peace. Some even called him Man of Blessings. But those names were not love. They were protection. Because in that village, fear had learned how to smile. This man had taken many lives, farmers, fishermen, landowners, not through open battles, but through dark means no one dared question. And when those people were gone, their lands became his. Their rivers became his. Their silence became his wealth. He grew powerful. He grew feared. But one thing never grew in him: contentment. Every night he listened to people whisper his praises in fake voices. Every morning he woke up angry that someone somewhere might still be happier than him. Then one morning changed everything. That day he sat alone by the riverside, watching the sunrise spread gently across the water. For the first time in a long while, the world felt quiet. Too quiet. As the sun climbed higher, the sky suddenly shifted. Clouds gathered, slowly, unnaturally. And within those clouds, a face began to form. A massive face, calm, yet terrifying. The witch man rubbed his eyes. Once, twice. His heart started racing. The face was still there. Then a voice came, not loud, not angry, but heavy enough to crush the soul. "From today, there will be nobody left to share anything with you." The river stopped flowing. The birds froze mid-air. The witch man screamed and ran. He ran until his legs failed him. That night, he could not sleep. The voice returned, again and again, echoing inside his mind. "Nobody to share with you. Nobody to share with you." He covered his ears, but the voice was not outside. It was inside him. Darkness fell. The village slept. And when morning came, everything was gone. The witch man stepped outside his home, but the world was silent. No birds sang, no dogs barked. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. He called out to his neighbors, "Hello, anyone there?" Only the echo of his own voice returned. At first he thought it a trick of the morning mist, but as he walked down the familiar paths, the truth pressed upon him like a stone in his chest. He was alone. The village, once alive with laughter, chatter, and the smell of smoke from cooking fires, was empty. Doors hung open. Huts stood like tombstones. The fields he had stolen from farmers now lay abandoned, wild, and overgrown. For a moment, a cold realization gripped him. No one would ever envy him again. No one would ever praise him again. And yet, the emptiness did not feel like peace. It felt like punishment. He walked along the river where he had first seen the face in the clouds. The water mirrored the sky, but now there was no sun, only a gray, endless light. The reflection staring back at him was the same man who had taken lives to claim wealth, land, and power. And now, all of it meant nothing. He shouted in anger. He kicked at the dry earth. He wept for the first time in decades, but no one heard him. No one would hear him ever again. Then slowly, a new sound reached his ears. It was not a voice of a person. It was the whisper of the wind. Yet somehow it was different. It carried a weight, as if the earth itself were speaking. You wanted all for yourself. Now all is yours, and yet you have nothing. The witch man fell to his knees, shaking. His wealth, his lands, his power, all meaningless in a world without eyes to see, hearts to feel, or mouths to speak. He tried to run, to leave the village, to find the cities beyond the forests. Perhaps the punishment was only here. Perhaps people elsewhere still existed. But as he journeyed, the forest swallowed him. The roads twisted unnaturally, and each step seemed longer than the last. And when he finally reached the first city, he realized a terrifying truth. The streets were empty. Cars stood still. Doors unlocked. Money stacked in banks. Meaningless piles without hands to hold them. Even the sky above the city felt the same. Gray, silent, unyielding. And in that moment, the witch man understood. He had been left alone with everything and nothing at once. The witch man wandered through the city streets, each step echoing against the walls of abandoned buildings. Stores stood open, shelves stocked with goods, but no one came to claim them. Cars sat in the middle of the roads, engines cold, windows staring blankly like eyes that had never existed. The city smelled of stillness, a lifeless perfume of metal, concrete, and forgotten air. He entered a bank. Inside, money piled high in neat stacks, coins shining under the fluorescent lights. Bundles of cash sat waiting, untouched. Vault doors stood wide open, revealing more money than he could ever dream of. He reached for the first stack, and for a brief moment, a shadow of his old greed returned. But when he touched it, he realized it meant nothing. No one to see it. No one to envy him. No one to fear him. The witch man screamed in frustration, throwing the bundles to the floor. The sound bounced back at him, mocking him, reminding him of the emptiness of his triumphs. He ran through the city. Skyscrapers rose above him like silent watchers, their glass facades reflecting only his own twisted reflection. Shops, homes, offices, all lifeless, all meaningless. And then he noticed it. Even nature had disappeared. No birds flew above the streets, no dogs barked, the wind had no sound, the sun barely pierced the gray sky. It was as if the world had forgotten how to breathe, and still. That voice lingered, not loud, not yelling, but inside his head. You want it all, and now all is yours, and yet you have nothing. He fell to his knees again. Tears streamed down his face, his heart raced. He realized the truth he had avoided for decades. All his power, all his cruelty, all his killings had brought him nothing but isolation. No friend, no rival, no witness, no consequence for others, no joy, only silence. He wandered for days, hours blurred into one another. Hunger gnawed at him, thirst burned his throat. But even his body felt the emptiness of the world. No birds came to peck at scraps, no insects buzzed. Even the rain seemed to avoid him. The witch man's mind began to fray. He talked to himself, begging, pleading, demanding that someone, anyone, appear. I did everything. I took everything. Where is everyone? But the city remained silent. And then, a new realization gripped him like iron. He was not just alone in this village. He was alone in the world itself. Days blurred into nights, and nights into days. The witch man wandered endlessly, each step heavier than the last. Even the wealth he had taken from others seemed to mock him. Gold coins, jewels, and treasures piled high in abandoned houses. But they were empty shells of triumph. He tried to lift them, touch them, claim them again, and still, they meant nothing. He entered a grand mansion, once belonging to a rich merchant. The doors creaked as he pushed them open. Inside, paintings of families smiled at him from the walls. Frozen smiles that could never laugh again. Tables overflowed with food, untouched for days, weeks. But as he reached for the finest dish, the food crumbled to dust in his hands. He fell back in horror. The mansion, the treasures, the riches, all decayed instantly before his eyes. A shiver ran down his spine as he noticed the reflection in a mirror. It was him, but not quite. His face looked older, thinner, hollowed by despair. His eyes no longer burned with envy. They glowed with panic. He had hunted death for so long, but now death was hunting him. And in the silence, that voice returned. You wanted all, yet all is meaningless. Even your power cannot escape the void. He screamed, pounding the floor, begging the invisible world for mercy. But there was none. The witch man ran from the mansion into the streets again. And that's when he saw the signs. Shadows moved where no one could be. Footprints appeared in the dust. Yet no one had walked there. Whispers floated around him, soft and mocking, like leaves brushing across his ears. Even the sunlight seemed to bend away from him. For the first time in his life, he was truly afraid. The world had rejected him. The universe had turned its back, and he was left to wander, forever alone.